Adam. With me is Garrett, and we have a special guest this week, Yowdy. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on here, guys.
Yeah, we've got Yowdy here to talk some Tigers. Tigers just finished up their opening series of the season, sweeping the Chicago White Sox in 3 games, winning each of those games by a single run. What was that? The first time in franchise history they've started a year sweeping a series, winning all 3 games by one hit or one run. Excuse me. Yowdy, we're just gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Um, what were your thoughts after that initial series? Got to be excited starting the year 3-0, despite it being the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I was expecting a little less amount of comeback wins against a team that's
Right.
supposed to be bad, but I do love that we never gave up. Those were 3 great team wins. Something we did not see last year, really, until maybe the end. But I think it definitely feels like we carried on where we were in spring, which was a very good position.
What are your thoughts on spring training? Garrett and I talked about it a little bit.
And you had the pleasure of being there for some of the games too.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're kind of talking about, like, as far as spring training in Major League Baseball goes, since it is a pretty extensive schedule that they play. Obviously they have single games, they have split squads. Obviously, like you mentioned, the Tigers had a good spring, but how much do you think that you can really get out of that, considering there are so many games? Can you really take a whole lot out of it, team wise, or is it more about like individual accomplishments during the spring?
I think it's 100% individual for the most part. I mean, you also have to remember, like, we're looking at different things watching these spring games than the ownership or the management are.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's good to see how they play well as a team together, but also, like, I saw the last spring training game against the Rays, and every single starter, which was most of the opening day roster, was taken up by the 5th inning. And that's like the last spring training game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's always tryouts for younger guys. It's good to see, especially if you just really pay attention to the first half, or just see how, guys who are gonna be on the major league team look. But for every time we put in young guys who don't have a shot, so does the other team. It's really a different game.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of that carryover, from spring to this first series. It seemed like the Tigers were getting, some timely hitting, which was good in the sense that it seems like with this particular team, again, carrying over from last season, that offense is always going to be a question mark. And they get that shutdown bullpen, again, another carryover from last season, and some pretty decent starting pitching aside from, Maeda, who got roughed up a little bit in that second game. What are your thoughts regarding all of that?
I think pinch hitting is exactly what we need it to be. I mean, you put in Andy Ibanez, he immediately drives in the run. Maeda, I'm not gonna make any judgment after one game. The guy has been in the game long enough. If it's a problem at the end of the month, maybe it'll be a thing, but I think he's veteran enough and he knows what he's doing to solve that problem. Yeah, Flaherty looked incredible. Skubal looked every bit the Cy Young candidate he will be in the future. Javi is. Look, I still want the guy to succeed. I want him to succeed, but we can't just have a glove out there.
It seems like with Javi, yeah, and that's something, and we're going to get to some offseason stuff here in a minute, but it seems like one of the things possibly going forward this season is maybe doing everything. AJ, as far as AJ Hinch goes, is maybe doing everything that you possibly can to distance yourself in the lineup from Javi Baez. What do you I mean, do you distance yourself from him in the lineup, or do you play him as much as you can early on to see maybe if he can catch fire and find something? Because I mean, we talk about those individual performances in the spring, and he had a shit spring.
Yeah, I think the most infuriating thing is that I think Javi knows more than anyone that he's not being what he can. Like, I think he's been extremely open about it, and then the talk is over the win or how much work he put in, and then I don't know.
I think
but
he's in his own head a lot too. Like you could tell.
No, 100%.
Yesterday with that low strike zone.
Garrett, your mic.
Good now. Test.
Somewhat.
Okay. I was gonna say with Baez, it looked like with the strike zone that he started to question himself a bit much more. Like he's not like lashing out, but you can tell like it's getting to him. Although getting a hit on Thursday was great, getting the run was great on there. But I kind of agree with you guys. Like I think he's maybe over trying. And when you over try, that's almost not as good as not trying at all.
Yeah, I still think ever since he's been here in 21 was that I felt like he's tried to put this team on his back in a way that he's never had to. And I think it's been too much for him. I think he's been trying way too hard since day one.
As far as Maeda goes, you mentioned it not being, not worrying about it until, maybe the end of the month, or the end of April, if he's, still not pitching well. One thing though that stands out with me as far as Maeda goes is that he's pitched in this division for a while, and he knows the division. And if this was one of those things where he's just coming into the division, and trying to learn it, then it might be more of a concern. But to me, what happened the other day just seemed like a shitty outing for him.
Yeah, and he's had them before.
Yeah.
I think last year, right before he got injured, I think that was when he had a terrible game against the Yankees, I think. Don't quote me on that, but every pitcher has bad games. Sometimes you're just unlucky enough to have it the first time everyone tunes in to watch you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on to some of the off-season stuff that the Tigers did. Obviously, the biggest acquisition is Jason Benetti. That's no question at all.
Best broadcast in a long time.
Absolutely. But as far as players on the field, team didn't go out and make a big splash with any one particular player. We saw Jack Flaherty come in, Kenta Maeda, Andrew Chafin, Shelby Miller, Gio Urshela, Mark Hanea. And then Colt Keith wasn't an acquisition, but they did sign him to a 9-year deal, $28.6 million, which could reach $82 million with added years, incentives, and so on and so forth. Who stands out to you as far as maybe one of the bigger, who could be the biggest factor to the team as the season goes on?
So I felt like Mark Hanna was our biggest pickup as soon as we got him. I was very excited about that. I loved him in Oakland. I liked him in New York. We really needed just a big, solid OBP guy. We've definitely had problems with striking out a lot lately. So having just a guy who can get on base a third of the time consistently. And I mean, as you saw, he has a little bit of pop in his bat.
Yeah.
So I was very excited about him.
It offers a little bit of flexibility too, something I think that AJ Hinch likes in the lineup. As far as, I mean, you can put him in the outfield, you can put him in the infield. Obviously, you can DH him. And I think that is very, very important to AJ Hinch as far as the lineup goes. As far as Colt Keith goes, because it seems like signing young prospects, high-end prospects to big-time deals before they even, see a major league game was somewhat of the new hotness in Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts on Detroit signing Colt Keith to that big deal and him starting out with the big club, which I guess you kind of have to do if you're throwing that kind of years and money out to a young player like that?
Yeah, it 100% took me by surprise. I was not expecting that. I know AJ said he's got to make the team first, but I mean, it's kind of a fortune. you don't spend like $3 million to leave a guy down in AAA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I obviously the organization is seeing something. I don't have a problem with it. I think he's going to be very good. The organization keeps bringing up the fact that he's reached his goals every time they set for him. And if he can just focus on baseball now, I'll take it.
Were you disappointed at all that, considering the trouble that the team had as far as, scoring runs last season, that they didn't go out and get a bat this offseason, somebody that is dependable in a lineup to drive in runs for you? Obviously, JD Martinez, who Tigers fans are really familiar with, hung around there till the very end, ended up, who we'll be seeing here this next series with the New York Mets. Were you a little disappointed that they didn't go out and get a bat this offseason?
No. Honestly, I love the offseason. I mean, Urshela is really as big as I think I would have gone. I hate saying the phrase taking up like space away for prospects because Jace isn't going to play at third base this year.
Yeah.
We're never going to get Matt Chapman to a 3-year deal and block off third. No, it just wasn't going to happen. Would I have loved to have Ohtani here? Yeah, sure. Was that going to happen? No. There wasn't any realistic options for stuff that didn't just block off an infield that we need to keep open.
No, that's fair. Moving into though to like what we have coming down the pipeline with this season, what do you think is the biggest strength, or is going to be the biggest strength for the Tigers this coming year?
I think it's still going to be starting pitching as long as we're healthy. I mean, our 1-2-3, assuming Maeda bounces back, is extremely strong. I mean, we didn't have room for a sixth starter. Matt was unfortunately sent down. I think they were hoping a situation would resolve itself, and it just didn't. I think we're going to be very strong there. Our bullpen is still really good.
What do you think about the return of Casey Mize? How do you think he's going to fare this season? Obviously, he was a top-end prospect for this team. I believe he was a number 1 at some point for this team. But what do you what's your make on him?
Yeah.
Looks like
I think you cut for a minute.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. No, I think this is really a make or break it season for him. I was not nearly as hot on him as I was Scooble. I just didn't feel like he had like a really good out pitch. I felt, I don't know. I just didn't feel like he could put away major league pitchers. And I think he definitely put those rusts to bed, or those concerns to bed for me in the spring. So hopefully if he can like carry that over into the majors, if he can be that first round pick that he's supposed to be, I think he will.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. On the flip side, Tigers' biggest weakness this season.
Besides Javi, I don't want to sound like a dead record. I honestly think it's going to be strikeouts.
Yeah,
it's been a problem already. It looks like Torque's struggling. Who else struck out? Colt struck out. I don't know. I think strikeouts are definitely going to be an issue, and I mean, Scott Harris keeps preaching about how much he wants to focus on the strike zone. So it seems like he's aware that that's also a shortcoming. But
Yeah.
I felt like we were, especially when on Thursday, going up against Garret Crochet, who I thought he had some good stuff against us. But some of our hitters are really like, I like to see us, I think, take more pitches. And I think that's something like, especially, and I think when Javi's crisis of confidence, he's not thankfully swinging at everything way over, but he wants to hit something. I feel like, though, yeah, like, because Torque struck out, 171 last year, and Baez was 100 plus as well. So, I mean, I agree that anyone who's thrown against us we've almost had as many strikeouts as many LOBs so far. I feel like, but it's maybe a little more patience at the plate.
yeah, yeah, Javi almost looked the way he struck out on that 92-mile-an-hour fastball away.
Yeah,
He's just too patient. So I think I think that's in his head, being too patient now, and he doesn't know when to swing. But
Yowdy, why will the Tigers win the AL Central in 2024?
besides the fact that this is anyone's division, it is wide open. Honestly, the only team I think really worries me is the Twins, and I don't see how their rotation is going to make it this year.
So you think it's probably good? So it's going to be our rotation that puts us over the top?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Cleveland's always going to be a problem just because they are. I don't think Kansas City is going to be, even if they improve 20 games, which they could, that's still not going to win you the division.
You're still below 500 with what they did last year, so yeah.
Yeah, and then the White Sox are, well, I mean, they put up a fight, but I don't think anyone's expecting anything out of them.
Especially after you trade your ace before the season even starts. So
I think the White Sox have good bats, but when pitchers, after you get their first time at bat, you can figure them out, and then you can eventually chip away at their bullpen. They don't seem like they have a deep bullpen after this week, especially yesterday, what it looked like near the end of that game.
Yowdy, one reason why the Tigers won't win the AL Central in 2024.
Man, I want to say injury, just because that's what's been. We got to be healthy. We can't have. How many starters did we go through last year? Like 12, 15, something.
Yeah, we went through a lot. Yeah,
that can't happen. That can't happen. We have got to stay healthy.
I think I already know the answer to this question I'm going to ask you from you specifically.
Yep.
But just go and look at your Twitter handle. But who is going to be the Cy Young winner for the Tigers this season?
Absolutely. People have been sleeping on him since he came back from last year. He was easily one of the best pitchers in baseball last year. He looks even better this year. Dude touched 100 in spring. This is the year of Scooble.
And you know what, too? I was thinking about this. He's still very, very young. Obviously coming back from injury. He's in a unique position right now with the Tigers. When you think of past aces that we've had and where they were to start the season, like even Justin Verlander. We went out and got Kenny Rogers when Justin Verlander was a young pitcher to start the season, which is fine. I mean, I have no problem with Kenny Rogers. I thought Kenny Rogers was a needed addition on those Tigers teams of the past, and obviously fit right in, almost won a World Series. If you want to go a little bit further back, and it's not nearly as good of a duo here, but I don't know if you guys remember, when we went out and got Jason Johnson to start ahead of Jeremy Bonderman, because Jeremy Bonderman,
you were going way back here.
at some point, Jeremy Bonderman was supposed to be the ace of the Tigers staff, but it never came to fruition just because I think the Tigers also ruined him during that 03 year, and he just got in his head and lost all sorts of confidence. But Skubal, though, on the other hand, he's been given the reins of this starting rotation, and so far so good to start the season.
Yeah, and I don't want to say they called him up too early. And maybe he gave up a lot of home runs in 21, and he looks like a different pitcher now. Like, he looks like an ace who, and I think like Maeda, and I don't know if he's going to be as much of a Kenny Rogers figure, or like, I mean, Flaherty's barely older than Skubal, I think.
Right.
Like, he's the other veteran guy in the lineup, and he's the second oldest guy on the rotation. But yeah, it's nice just seeing Skubal just get the reins this early. Like, just knowing it's his rotation, I'm excited.
Yeah. Tigers MVP this season. Who's it going to be?
Can I say Colt Keith?
If you want to.
I think he looks great. He'll get the bat going, I think, but the fielding is already really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's my actual. He does look better at second base already than I thought he was going to. He just looked natural. He hasn't really any hard hit ground balls, but he's looked good on them. No, I think it's going to be Canna. I do.
A lot of confidence in Canna, which I like. It's good. That's good. And then finally, Yowdy, your final prediction for the Tigers 2024 season. What's it going to be? Where are they finishing?
I think we're going to win the Central.
Yes.
I think we're going to win it with like 90 and 72.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Like, I think everyone is equally average.
Yeah.
In this division. Look, the Twins got worse. We got better. I think we'll even out.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the Twins this year. I do agree with you. I think they got worse. Even with everything that the Royals did this past offseason, like you mentioned earlier, even if they're 20 games better, I don't think that puts them over the top in the AL Central. Cleveland's going to be Cleveland, and we already got our first glimpse of the White Sox. I think the White Sox are going to be one of the worst teams in baseball. But when I was mentioning to Garrett too the other day, given how good the American League is, whether it's out west with the Mariners, the Rangers, the Astros, or out east, which is just a fucking gauntlet of teams in that division, which thank God we do not play in the AL East anymore. When you're talking the Blue Jays, the Orioles, the Yankees, the Rays, I think our best shot at the postseason is through the AL Central, which I think the Tigers will win, but I don't think they make it out of that first series.
No.
I think a division win, just getting back into playoffs, I think is a good start for this team.
Absolutely.
When you look at, it's been a decade since we've gotten in, and and that's the scary thing when you look at, granted, first series and when you have 5-6 months of baseball, but the fact that the Yankees took all four in Houston and coming back from 4-0 down in the opener, it kind of gives you an idea if they can keep that momentum going, that then the East might be even more of a dogfight than what it was last year. Because we've already talked about, Adam, you were talking about the Red Sox even taking a bigger step back than they were last year. Last year, they were the only team not 500 in the East. This year, you're thinking they might even be like what the White Sox were, potentially. So I agree. It's division or bust this year to get in. So we're not going to get 100 games. As much as I want to manifest a 100-win season, the last time we won 100 games in a season was our 1984, and we won a World Series that year. We're not fucking there yet, I don't think. But I'll go 90, 92 wins.
Yeah, I think I think the Red Sox are in a bad situation right now, considering I think the Orioles are probably going to come out on top in the East, and I think the Orioles are going to be representing the American League in the World Series this year.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think the Orioles are that good. But I mean, as far as the Tigers, I don't know what type of number I want to put on, in terms of wins. If you're asking me who my MVP is, I'm gonna go Torque. Despite the, any slow start or anything like that, I'm gonna go with Torque. I thought he looked good obviously he looked good at the end of the season last year, but I think it's going to be. I think a lot of the success this year is going to be on his shoulders, especially the need that this team, I think, still has for a for a bat and offensive production. So, but I'm with you too, Yowdy, on Schoolball though. I think this is his year, and I think he's definitely going to be in some type of conversation when it comes to that AL Cy Young Award though. Guy has electric stuff, and he has experience now too. He has experience pitching in the league, which you really can't take for granted in any capacity. So
I think my thing for MVP, I think Torque and obviously the bats are going to go good. I agree with Scuba for the Cy Young, but I think our MVP may actually be in our pen. Chafin being back is a good thing, but I'm really impressed by Shelby Miller so far. I'm either going to go Shelby Miller or Jason Foley. I think one of, if not both, those guys are going to be absolutely vital to us, especially if Alex Lang's struggling to hit the strike zone is becoming a consistent thing. You're going to have those other guys, I think, step in and really make sure that we are in a safe spot.
Yeah, Lang Lang did not look good. But I mean, he's always had trouble with that. And I mean, Foley hit 101 the other day.
Yeah.
Could be him.
One last question for you, Yowdy, before we let you go. Chafin and the mustache. What are your thoughts?
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Dude just has flow.
Him and Foley just look incredible. There's never been a person who couldn't pull off long curly hair and a mustache. I maintain that.
I think the recipe for if you're going to have a good baseball team, especially a good pitching staff, you need at least a couple of guys with some good facial hair out of the pen.
Can we talk about the mullets between Holton and McKinstry right now? Good Lord, that's it's some vibe. It's some fun vibes.
I don't know. Yeah, it's not a mustache.
Thoughts on the new dugout celebration that apparently Torque came up with. So instead of the Red Wing helmets right now, it is plush pizzas on a spear.
I'm conflicted. I like it in spirit. Don't know if I love like free advertising for your employer. But at the same time, it's Little Caesars. It's not like you're spreading the gospel or anything.
Right.
But I love that Torque is getting in on it. I love that Torque is just taking the lead on these.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's sucking up to Chris Illich a little bit and maybe trying to get a raise in the process.
Him up long term by this, I'm fine with that. That's what you got to do for all of us.
Yowdy, though, thanks for joining us, though. It's been great.
Where can they find you online for consistent baseball talk throughout the season?
I am on Twitter, X, whatever, at Mike Feldbeard for all my hot Tarek Scooble takes.
But don't pay any attention to him when football season comes around, though.
We took his guard. We're in good shape. I feel good about that.
Yowdy is a dirty Baltimore Ravens
I'm proud
fan,
of it.
so
Very proud of it.
Yowdy,
Hey.
thanks for joining us. We'll talk again soon. All right.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we are back. Detroit City Sportscast on Detroit.themajorsports.com. Adam Hernandez, Garret Komatz. Just finished up our Tigers preview with Yowdy. It's great. Good stuff. Make sure if you're just tuning in now for this, go back and listen to that. But we also have to get to the Red Wings because we talked about it last week. We talked about where we were with them and what they needed to do, and lo and behold, they did none of that.
Yep.
They went and they lost in overtime to the Washington Capitals, but they pulled a little bit of surprise the other night and managed to get a point in Florida against the Panthers. And before all of this, though, Garret, they lost, what was it, 4-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes?
Yeah, that was the
Which-
in-between game. And if
Yep.
anyone wants to get a quick thought of that, just watch was it did we call it Molding Over Hockeytown? Did we call it a recap? I think it was whatever it was. It was short but sweet, which is all the time you need to spend on that game.
But Garret, looking at the standings, there's some bad news and then there's some good news. Bad news, like we already mentioned. Red Wings losers in their past 4 games at the time of this recording. They got a game tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Again, another big game. Good news, Flyers have also been dog shit during this stretch. Losers of their last 4. Losers of their last 4 while only earning a point in that process. Red Wings
Let's
have
name
gotten
the
2 points.
let's name the last 4 that the Flyers have, or in particular the last 2. Flyers had their last 2 games against the Montreal Canadiens and the Chicago Blackhawks. Teams that are out of playoff contention have no business. Montreal, you lose 4-1. Blackhawks, you lose 5-1.
Yep, and that's not a good omen. Not a good
Right.
omen if you're the Flyers and you're looking to make the postseason here. And while all of this is going on, the Red Wings, for as bad as they've been over the month of March, they're only 2 points out of the last wild card spot now. Now chasing the Philadelphia Flyers. And here's what we have coming up for the Red Wings right now, Garret. We've got the Lightning tonight. Gonna be tough. Got the Rangers. After that, again, gonna be tough. Sabres, Capitals, Penguins, Maple Leafs, and then a home and home against the Montreal Canadiens to finish out the season.
I think right now we should be absolutely, whatever you believe, anything of that, throw it up to the sky because in my opinion, we have given. I mean, the Capitals have passed the Flyers now for the automatic spot in the Metropolitan, and I like that better because I think it's much easier to catch Philly than it is to catch Washington. Even Washington got a point against Boston on Saturday night. I caught the end of that game too, and it was even the shoot. They're fighting, they're playing, hard on that. But like the Islanders have had opportunities to pass us, they haven't done it. The Devils have had opportunities. The Penguins have been inconsistent enough, but all of these teams, even Buffalo, have had chances to really make strides and get past us with what we've been giving them. And they haven't done it. So that's got to count for something, I think. We have a game in hand on Philly, which is even better. 2 points behind
especially
them.
if that Canadians game at the end of the season comes into play there too.
Other things to take advantage. Well, we are 2 points behind them. We have 2 more regulation wins than the Flyers and 2 more regulation and overtime wins than the Flyers, which means that in the time come, if there's tiebreakers in that, we benefit on that tiebreak, on those 2 tiebreakers before the whole everything else. Because many of us might remember the year that Philadelphia went to the Stanley Cup to lose to the Blackhawks. They got in on the last day of the playoffs, beating the Rangers in a shootout. And that was back. But then because of that, that's when they started to really determine the regulation and overtime wins as a strength of schedule type thing. I think I'll ask you this question. What do you take weight in more? The hard-fought, unable to get done games Tuesday against the Caps and Saturday against the Panthers, or the whatever the fuck we're going to call the game in Carolina on Thursday, which, granted, Carolina does this all the time, but it was even worse than what it usually is.
I guess I put more weight. I mean, the team has, they have been playing better.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how much worse things can get than what they were throughout, generally speaking, throughout March. I guess I put more weight into those hard fought wins because, like I said before, I've said it to you on the phone, I've said it in the on Detroit City Sportscast before, that this team isn't complete.
Right, they're raw.
This team is still raw in a sense that they, and I'll keep saying this, that they still need depth on their front or their first 2 offensive lines. And they have work to do this offseason when it comes to their defensive pairings.
Right.
This isn't a finished team. Yzerman never said that this was a finished team.
Right.
I didn't think that they were making the playoffs before the season started. So where they're at right now, those hard-fought wins over teams that they need to beat, I don't think anybody should be expecting them. Yeah, it's disappointing they lose 4-0 to Carolina in an important game after the stretch that they had. But losing close games on the road against Nashville, losing a close game in overtime to the Capitals, losing a close game in overtime to a Panthers team who was arguably the best team in the National Hockey League.
Right.
I think you could take more out of that at this point of the season, especially everything that they've had to deal with, everything that they've gone through throughout the majority of March. So
Larkin going down early on Saturday, for example.
Yeah.
And everybody was probably like, hand on their chest, hoping. Yeah. He kept fighting. I think that's
came back and scored the game tying goal.
Great power play movement. There's steps in the right direction, and I felt like, and I'll go with you this year, I kind of was thinking that I think we were going to be it was going to be close, but I didn't think we were going to get in. I didn't think like we were that strong. We were going to be stronger than what we were last year, and I think we've shown that.
Sure.
But I agree with you. We have role players are a good thing, but I feel like we almost have too many role players right now, and we're trying to have some of these role players try to be like even more supportive scoring. Like, I'm looking at it this way. Who are the guys? Am I happy for Larkin? I think it's more impressive to see the growth of Lucas Raymond this year. The growth of Moritz Seider, Wallman even too, when he's been healthy enough, and showing that Alex Lyon can be an option in the as goaltending. What I think we're going to need to do, and whether this means bringing Sebastian Cossa up to do a Lyon Cossa pairing, because you have to wonder, what are you going to do with Ville Husso? What are you going to do, with James Reimer? And your defensive questions, you have Gus to spare that you have to, are you going to bring him back, or are you going to pass on to make even one step higher? These are going to be all things that how we finish out these last 2 weeks, I think is going to give Steve an idea of how he wants to handle the draft and how he wants to handle the offseason.
And I hate looking ahead to, off-season stuff when we're in the midst of a playoff run right now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, when we were talking on the phone the other night, Garrett, that's really my biggest concern right now. It's not what's happening in this run right now, in the here and now. Having the march that they did and having to claw your way back into the playoffs. My worry comes this offseason with what the fuck are you going to do with these defensive, pairings that they have?
Yeah.
What are you going to do to try to get rid of Justin Hole, Alimata, Sherratt, Jeff Petrie? And we were talking about, again, another conversation the other night. We heard people bitching about Petrie. Why is he still in the lineup? Why are they still playing? Okay, if you take out Petrie, who are you going to go with? Who are you going to go with?
It's the exact same situation that we had in the mid-2010s after Nick Lidstrom retired. When our defensive pairings of those times, we had Kyle Quincy, we had Jonathan Erickson. Give me some more. I'm trying to think, who the fuck else do we have in defenseman that was that short? Brendan Smith.
Brendan Smith, yep. You said Jonathan Erickson, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I said Jonathan Erickson. A fading Nicholas Cronwell. I mean,
yeah,
we haven't been blessed in defense. Let's see, Rafalski retired at the end of 2011. Lidstrom retired the next year. It's been 12, 13 years. Moritz Seider's becoming that guy / with a little of that Konstantinov like physicality, especially after throwing hands with Forsberg in Nashville. But we need one more. If anything, I think it's promising to look at what's going on in Grand Rapids right now with the Griffins and their run, because if anything, I remember what Steve Yzerman was doing with the Syracuse. Is it Syracuse Crunch? Is it the Crunch or the Crush in the AHL? But the Tampa Bay's AHL team and those players that you're seeing come up through those ranks. And I think John Cooper was part of that and then moved up into the thing. And those players, and look what that Lightning team became. I think you're going to start to see some of this. You're going to see eventually the things in here. Does that mean Marco Kasper? Does that mean Kosa? Does that mean whoever else? Fenny, who they brought in from WHL, who Dan Cleary's big on. So.
Well, you saw, as far as a Kosa goes, unfortunately, I don't know what they're going to do with Kosa. I mean, Reimer, They're not going to bring back next year. Reimer's out of a contract, and he's going to be gone. But then all of a sudden you have Husso and you have Alex Lyon, who are both signed for next season. Right. So unless you're able to get rid of one of those guys, you can go ahead and bring up Kosa, who obviously, we've mentioned is having a phenomenal year this year in Grand Rapids, but you can't bring up Kosa next year to just sit on the bench.
He needs to play at least 30, 40 games.
Yeah, luckily they have, I think, guys in front of them right now where you can split starts with them, because obviously right now the problem with Alex Lyon is I think they've overplayed him. But you didn't have a choice in that sense. You had to play Lyon the way that they have, because there was really no other options out there for you. I don't think that they could bring up Kosa right now and have it work. He still needs to get time in Grand Rapids.
It's better for Kosa right now this season to finish out in Grand Rapids to get those big game experiences, because quality of play withstanding. Big game, people grow and learn from big game experiences. Trey Augustine, who is, I think, in our wins program, even though we'll talk about at the very end what happened in the regionals last night for Michigan State, Michigan, those are big game experiences that you're going to learn from when those players take the next step wherever it is that they're going to be. So that's where I think you wanted to be. A wishful circumstance I think Steve Yzerman wished is that Billy Husso did not injure himself in his first game back, because I do wonder if a Husso Lion partnership pairing would have like softened this blow we've experienced this last 5 weeks or so.
It could have. I think no, in fact, I think it would have. Husso's a decent goaltender. Obviously, just couldn't stay healthy this year.
Right.
I think our biggest problems though come defensively and how we are going to be wrapped into some contracts, some bad contracts. I think with some of our depth. I don't think David Perron should be back next year unless they get him on a 1-year deal that they need, after as a last signing after getting some other depth up front.
Yeah.
But we've got Andrew Kopp for a few, it's still a long-term deal. JT Compher is another one. It's stuff like that I'm more so worried about heading into the off season. When we need to get another top end forward on this team.
Right.
Looking at things defensively, when we need another top end defenseman on this team, we need to make room for Edvinsson on this team. Edvinsson needs to be starting on the big club next year.
Right.
And then you also look at a guy like, as far as, line pairings too, with like an Elmer Soderblom too. Is he going to be a factor, going into next season? And it seems like Jonathan Bergeron is going to be gone too. I don't think he's going to end up. It just seems like the team has different thoughts in terms of where he fits in.
Right.
And I don't think he fits in at all. So maybe that's something that Yzerman can, somehow, pull out of a bag here, is including, Bergeron and Hall or something for whatever, just to get rid of some of these guys who, we just need to part with to make room on the team for other signings, other guys coming up, and to free up some of that RFA money that we're going to have to dish out to Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider. So,
yeah, want to bring in a quick stat because just to give people a sense of reality in the Eastern Conference. Here's the top 6 teams, but regardless of conferences right now, which already tells you how hard it is to get a playoff spot in this Eastern Conference right now. Rangers first place, 104 points, 50 wins already this year in 74 games played. Then the Bruins at 101 leading the Atlantic. Carolina has 101 in the Metro behind them, and then you have the Panthers with a game in hand on the Bruins at 99. The Leafs at 93, the Bolts at 89, and then Washington and Philly at 82, and us at 80. So the fact that you have already, by the time Florida's going to get, you're going to have 4 teams pretty much at 100 points already. You're going to have at least 5, maybe 6 teams at 100 points in this Eastern Conference. That means you are in you talked about, and you have in the case of Florida, or, I was saying Florida originally to come out of the East, but I will also not be surprised if the Rangers, and I don't want to give Bronx Kate that much credit about it, but I think the Rangers might look at what Panarin's doing lately. The Rangers are giving it thinking it's 1994 all over again, the way that they're playing. And that is when we have to deal with all of that. Yeah, I can see why it's a tough thing to get in. But look at where we're at. And that's as fucked up as this sounds right now with the last 5 weeks that we've had. Look at where we're at now compared to where we were at this point last year. We've already had the collapse last year. We moved a bunch of people in there. We're still almost fighting. One note, I want to give the Flyers remaining schedule, and then anything else you wanted to add for wins. Their run that they have, as ESPN's fighting me right now, Islanders tonight, Buffalo on the road Friday, the Jackets on the road, Metropolitan Division game, might not be as easy, might be harder than what people think. Montreal away, Montreal smacked them 4-1 last week, not guaranteed. Rangers on the road, Devils at home, Capitals at home. Not easy for the Flyers.
Schedule than the Wings. They have an easier schedule than the Wings, though.
They have an easier schedule than the Wings, though, but they have shown that they have not been able to capitalize often in these easier games. When you see how they did against the Blackhawks and the Flyers, Blackhawks game that 5-1 loss was at home too. That's
if it comes to, obviously if it comes down to the Flyers and Wings, the Wings have they still have their destiny in their own hands with that game advantage.
right.
Just win your games. Take both of those games against Montreal at the end of the season. And yeah, so I mean, things would be looking good at that point. They need to have a good April. They have a good April. I think they're in.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what it's all going to come down to is, is as cliche and as obvious as it is.
Finish strong.
If you're a Wings fan, I know March sucked, but you should still be happy that this is where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we'll refer to March as it was the season for March was priority waste.
Oh God, don't remind me. Okay, you know what? Off season priority number 1.
Find a different sponsor.
Get rid of fucking priority. Get rid of fucking priority on that jersey.
Or give them give them a quality. Boards are digital now, but give them probably like promotion time at like LCA or on the ground. Do something other than the uniform patch.
Get them the fuck off my uniforms. That's all I'm gonna say.
We also have to give also another thing. Although I've been hearing, because for people that have been hating the new baseball stuff, and Fanatics takes over the NHL contract next year. Adam knows I'm a uni nerd, so I follow aesthetics for hockey. Sounds like the aesthetics has a bit more of things in their own hands as opposed to the baseball situation, which was a Nike design that Fanatics then carried out. So some people might be excited, nothing over too much, but it may not be as horrible as we're thinking. But that's, again, player merch, not the fan shit that people get that could be upside down and all the other stuff that I see on Twitter on a daily.
I fucking hate it. I hate Fanatics so much.
Yep.
And now that they're taking over NHL stuff next year. Fuck that. Fucking hate them. I hate everything about them. I hope that company burns to the fucking ground for what they did to baseball uniforms.
Mitchell and Ness, you guys are real ones.
But other than that, we're gonna go ahead and take another quick break. Come back, talk about Detroit City FC. Hot start to the season, and we'll see you on the other side of it. Detroit City Sportscast. Adam here, Garrett there. Want to get into Detroit City 2-1 win over the Indy 11 Saturday night, moving them to 3-0 on the season, which is really huge considering where this team was at this time last season. And just how things kind of finished up for them. We don't have Sean on this week, but I think we're going to try to get a Make City Make Spence maybe next week, Garrett.
Yeah, if not next week, within the next couple on there. After this weekend's match, City's got a bye, but we'll have a midweek Open Cup match and then a league match. So within the next couple of weeks or so, we'll look forward to another Make City Make Spence.
Cool. Couple of notes though about this last game. Another comeback win, another 2-1 win over the Indy 11. Maxi Rodriguez, another game winner. This time scoring, I can't remember what exactly minute it was at.
88th.
88th minute. Thank you, Garrett. Reese Williams entered the starting 11 in place of Ben Morris. Initial thoughts, Garrett?
I think this is the best one out of the three so far. When you look at the fact that Indy 11 is a team that they are one of what I call the heavy hitters in terms of USL Championship, and in terms of the finances, and in terms of the players that they bring in and year out. They finished top 6 in the Eastern Conference last year in the regular season, making a couple moves. They then bolstered things up. Augustine Williams, who, assassin for Charleston Battery the last couple of years up top. They brought him in here. They brought Tiga Akoba on loan from Portland Timbers, a young 20-year-old American forward up top who started for them. Sebastian Guenzati, 32-year-old Uruguayan, but somebody who's been scoring goals in USL Championship regularly for Tampa Bay Rowdies. So add to our other players in Cam Lindley and Jack Blake. This is a team of well-known players in there. And you could completely make sense, and it would completely be plausible for Detroit City to go in on the road at Indy 11 this past Saturday and cede possession to Indy and play the game on the counter. They did not do that. If anything, Indy was trying to break the play up and cause it to be choppy, and that to benefit them in terms of the thing. They did that in the 24th minute, taking the lead. Switch play over, ball went it over to, I just had the stat up. Here we go. Over to Jonas Budati, who unfortunately took Brett Levi's soul briefly with that Meg in the box before Sebastian Guenzati took his shot. I mean, that's what you bring that guy in to do. But other than that, like we talked about last week, I think in our chats, like we might have talked about last week with Spence, was not concerned when we went down 1-0. And we kept going at it. Nate Steinwasser made a couple big saves to keep it in. Ali Coote opening up his account for Detroit City. Maxi Rodriguez with a little ball out there. Coote with a quick touch with his right foot. Tough angle shot with that left foot.
Absolutely.
But he knew what he was going to do, and he did it.
Is that a strong foot, or is his right foot the strong foot?
His right foot's the strong. But if anything, that tells you.
Even more impressive.
So the fact that he touched it on his right and then took it on his left. It's just, wait, I liked how we did our subs though. So you mentioned Reese Williams started on the right for Ben Morris, which I thought was a different dimension on that, because Reese is somebody that can Reese is a guy who can do service. He loves taking guys on, and he loves using both feet. This is, for me, as somebody, and Adam knows this in the combos, I might have said it last week, I fucking hate it when footballers only use one foot. You make stupid amounts of money, even for playing at this level. Like, it's a good living. Use both your feet. So, and he does that. And if anything, what that did, that allowed Ben Morris to come in as a sub for Ali Coote and play on the left-hand side, which is more of an inside position for him, which means he could use his strong foot for shots, strong foots for give and goes, those type of things. That and Yazid Matthews coming on as a sub for Elvis Amo, that meant with Yazid Matthews, you're not going to get a like-for-like replacement in terms of the technical ability and in terms of the finishing edge. What you're going to get is a big body that takes up space, that opens up room for some of our other players to shine. And that's what the winning goal was. James Murphy set piece. Yazid heads it. Maxi close range. Ball game.
This is something that I want to run by Spence too next time he's on. And I think we might have even touched on this a little bit last week as far as Bizarra goes and where he might fit in. And, if this is going to let Dicchio kind of play some matchups a little bit more.
Right.
As far as, what you want to do up top when you have to take Elvis out, when it's time to sub him out.
Yeah.
because Spence made a comment about, putting in Yazid to kind of be like a chaos agent type of player.
Which
that
exactly was
just-
that.
Yeah, which, just, if you need a goal by any means necessary, you put in a guy like Yazid. Is Bazzara going to be a little bit more finesse? If maybe you're trying to suffocate another team, finish things out, who knows? But that's maybe something we can get more, talking about with Spence when he's back on again. Garrett, you mentioned though too, in one of our chats that, well, first of all, again, you mentioned earlier, but in the segment here about how Detroit wasn't ceding possession,
Right.
and you mentioned the other day too how Augie Williams, how far back he was playing.
You bring
which
in
is crazy.
if you're Indy 11 and you bring a guy like Augie Williams, you want to keep him as higher up on the pitch as possible so you can play off your guys and finish goals. The way we were playing with the ball, you're seeing Augie Williams have to track back from one of the top two. Indy looked like they were doing a 4-4-2 shape, traditional shape. And you have Augie Williams having to tuck back to almost shut that, like track back off the ball defensively to where our midfields are at, to where like a James Murphy is or Elijah, to try to break the play up. If anything, that's what we've been, and City fans, we're used to that pain because as 2 years ago, how far away from the attacking third was Pato Mateo taking touches? How far away from the final third a lot of times was Skaggy Simonson and Ben Morris taking touches? Away from like areas where they could actually benefit. That's a good sign of playing your game. Devin Amu-Mensah getting high up off the ball runs on set pieces for heading. We were causing enough chaos. And I also need to give a shout out to Alex Villanueva as a sub, because I thought when he came on, that dude could fucking fly.
Yeah,
and like
so can Reese.
Reese too. And that's the thing too, because Brent Levi's is a great player. Brent Levi's has I think Dennis from our compatriot from Channel 451, when we got Levi's from Tulsa in the middle of last season, you could see Levi's as heat sharp. He covers a lot of range, but Brent Levi's, as Sean Spence mentioned, father times against him. You got to manage his like a pitcher coming back from Tommy John. You need to manage Brent Levi's minutes. Alex Villanueva, I think, is that perfect thing where I can see him filling in some days just so Brent can rest the legs up, because Alex Villanueva was 22 years old and he's already got a ton of experience on there. I thought that helped in because that left side. If you, I'm going to go phrase remember the Titans for a little bit. Our left sides our left side is our strong side. If you look at the right side, Matt Sheldon came on, getting some minutes. Like, the first game he came on in Colorado Springs in stoppage time after we took the lead. This time he came on. I think he came on, and let me see here. He came on for Mike Bryant, and that was in the 70th minute. So to see out some games and to just basically be another anchor in that back, which also allowed Alex to kind of play higher up on that other side. 150th appearance on Saturday in the USL Championship from Matt Sheldon. Congratulations to him on that. Maxi Rodriguez with his 100th appearance in the championship. But yeah, I think you're seeing matchups. You're seeing smart moves. Dominic Gasso getting some quality minutes for Elijah. Much like you're seeing also, too, I don't know if you noticed this when you did your rewatch. So you're seeing how Maxi Rodriguez is playing that free roll higher up. Like, as a number 10, sometimes as a supporting striker, often being the one to chase the balls in there while Elvisamo kind of, maintains his shape off the ball. You're starting to see late in games, too, in our middle of our pitch, James Murphy kind of have that freedom to move forward if he wants to. Those subtle plays, because even the subtle thing of, I forget who he threw off. I think Murphy threw off Augie Williams. during the game. And it's just like those little things is things we've missed. And it's just so refreshing to see that.
James Murphy reminds me of a guard, an offensive, a guard in football on the offensive line where
Right.
the stuff he does isn't that noticeable, but when he's gone, you notice that he's gone.
Right. A defensive shooting guard in basketball that may not get you a whole lot of points, but he's there because he's not going to let you get past him.
No, and something else I wanted to point out too, Garrett, is you mentioned Maxey a second ago. That Maxey Rodriguez, Ali Coote connection, is this going to be one of the best in USL Championship? Because the way that those two are playing right now, looks like they love playing together, and it looks like they've been playing together for quite some time when it's only been, a couple of months, if
I
that,
think
with training camp.
I think what it is you're seeing smart footballers, creative footballers learning off of each other and kind of getting the flow. There was a play, I think, Saturday that it looked like it was going to be broken on the right-hand side. It looked like Indy had isolated Michael Bryant, but then Matt Sejak came in and a little with Amo and a touch, and then I think they tried to get Coote involved in there. You're seeing some, I think it's Danny's encouragement too, of being free and moving around and try to create, because when you look at how Maxey fed Ali, everybody in that first minute was all bunched up in each other. And then Maxey gets the one ball, and then you see Ali all of a sudden try to break wide out to like spread out, and Maxey sees that and plays the ball like that. And Ali is smart. Ali has the ability to hit a shot like that from that angle into that corner. But it's those little things that they're trusting each other to do. And it's a great thing.
Garrett, this wasn't on the rundown at all, but I wanted to bring it up because it's something that we also discussed off air. Connor Rutz had that goal, the game winner, week 1 against Colorado Springs. Got a knock. Wasn't in the lineup at all against Loudoun.
Right.
Wasn't in the lineup at all against Indy 11.
Right.
During the broadcast, I noticed when they were going over the injuries that Neil said that there weren't any injuries on City's side. So what are we thinking here? Did Connor not even make the trip? Is he healthy and ready to go? Just didn't make the trip. What do you think about Connor Rutz, considering how much of a role he had on the team last year, and this year? Obviously, he had the big game winner in Colorado, but has been non-existent last week against Loudoun and this week against Indy 11.
I think the knock has probably helped things. I don't know if he's still having knocks and stuff, but when you look at, we're only allowed to have 18 on the pitch on match day, or with the new law, 20 with some academy level spots. I'm looking at what Yazid Matthews. I looked at, because week 1 Yazid Matthews was the one that didn't make the start, that didn't make the bench in Colorado, and I look at what Yazid did coming on as a sub against Loudoun last week. I looked at what he did today, not today, but a couple days ago against Indy. You're going to put, you have to decide in that case for Connor, because also Ryan Williams, Victor Becerra, these are guys that are going to be trying to, fight for those last spots to make the 18 on most match days. Because you also have to do maybe Danny's playing the matchup here, because what's a better matchup? Is Connor Rutz's engine good, or is Yazid Matthews to annoy defenders in situations late in games, or Danny Espeleta? Those type of things there. I think that's where you really come into the thing. If Connor's ready to go, does he feature this Saturday against North Carolina? We'll see. I think he'll definitely be. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in our cup game in the middle, which is either like the 16th or 17th, I think, is when our U.S. Open Cups game is going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that, especially if we play a lower league team. But I think that's where you're seeing it into. And I think Connor, like I said, Connor's got a place in this team, I think, for enroll in an engine. But the problem, we've revamped our team to rely so much on technical and tactical that, you know, those guys are going to often be the ones you first go to in the situation. Like, we've needed a goal in the last 2-3 games. Connor got the goal because he followed up in the box and, you know, was an additional person. I think, like I said, yeah, it's different because he was such a valuable member of this, and especially in, you know, Trevor James's eyes, getting and running his, you know, complete, you know, running his body down as an engine. But we've been calling out for goals, and we've been getting goals in ways now. So I'm not concerned yet. I would say May or June, then maybe we'll know, like, hey, the writing's on the wall.
I think there's a couple of things to look at when it comes to Connor and, you know, the roster and what Danny is looking to do right now. I think in terms of last year, I know a lot of people were, you know, very, very vocal about Connor being in the lineup. And some things that Spence said last week about, you know, and it's all speculation. I don't want to say that this was fact or anything like that. But, you know, when we asked about Adrian and why he didn't make the lineup, you know, there's some speculation when we talked about Spence, you know, as far as him not willing to take on the role on the pitch that Trevor had in mind for him. You and I think both had the same opinion about Skaggy last year. And you put all this stuff together, and all of a sudden you are, in a way, I don't want to say forced to play Connor more, but when you run into a situation like that, if that's what happened, then Connor is going to get more minutes, especially if he is a guy willing to take on roles that maybe necessarily he's not accustomed to, and something that, you know, and that's probably something that Trevor was, you know, something that he liked and he was appreciative of, and he rewarded him with more playing time. This season, I mean, based on the way that this team is playing right now, up top, you know, we talked about, you know, the alley and the Maxi connection and how they're playing with Elvis, and, you know, you look into at some of the other at some of the other you know, pieces that have been put in place and pieces that have been here for a while. Reese Williams has been here for a while now.
Right.
You look at a guy like Alex Villanueva, who was on the outside looking in last year with Orange County, all of a sudden gets a new opportunity with Detroit this year. So he's got to be happy about that. Again, Jope has been here for a little while. You know, Gasso is getting some playing time. And then obviously you talk about that back line with Steven and Devin and Matt and Brett. So you added some of these pieces that were needed and probably refreshing based on what we had going last year. And some of the guys that have been here for a while, and all of a sudden, you know, when things click, as they seem to be doing right now, it makes things hard for a guy like Connor to get into the lineup. Especially too when you look at kind of the balance that we have right now. What's one thing that we need? We probably need another like center back on this team, right? Connor is not a center back. You're not going to play Connor at center back. If you look at two guys who are the first ones out, it's probably going to be Matt Sheldon and it's probably going to be Connor Rutz. And between those two guys, who is going to be the odd man out between those two guys? It's probably
Connor,
going to be Connor.
Yeah, especially because if one of Devin and Steven gets hurt, the thing is you're going to put Michael Bryant between one of the two, and then you're going to put Matt Sheldon or even Reese Williams as a right back, which then means which means that Ben Morris or Danny Espeleta takes the win. And then I think Danny sees Connor as for his engine rate, and that is in the pivot roles. with Elijah,
Yes.
with James Murphy, with Dominic Gasso, which isn't a bad thing. I think that's Connor's specialty. I think Connor gets more goals from deeper rolls than playing them way the high up pitch in this level of thing. Some people are like that. Some people need more space to capture on that. But agreed. It's what is your roles on this? What are everybody's roles on this team? And people get an idea. And I think that's another thing. I think people know their roles on this team and are embracing the roles for the most part. And Danny's always talked about, he cares as much about 12 to 23 as much as 1 to 11.
Yep, absolutely. Coming up this weekend, Garrett, we've got City back at home, back at Keyworth, taking on North Carolina FC, who made their return to the championship this year after self-promoting from League One. Not LAFC. NCFC, where are they at this year? They've
played 4 or 5, I think.
Yep, they are 1-2-1 in the Eastern Conference, and they are coming off of a 2-1 win over what was a hot Hartford Athletic team. What are your thoughts going into this weekend's game against North Carolina?
Watched their match against Loudoun before Loudoun came to town, and they went toe to toe with Loudoun for a lot of that game. They beat Hartford on Friday. I think honestly, yeah, they got talent, but I look at that team and I think we can physically be the ones in control, if not on the ball on there. I feel like, and this is a weird thing for me to say this with City, I feel like with the last couple of years, but I really feel like we can, I don't get under their skin, but definitely be the ones to set the tone. North Carolina, like us, North Carolina hasn't had a clean sheet yet, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or if they had a clean sheet, it was week 1.
Week 1 against Charleston, it was 0-0.
So I think if City plays, if anything, what City needs to prove is that they can have as quality of a first half as they can in the second, because because their best first half was the opening day in Colorado when they had a 1-0 halftime lead. The last 2 games they've fallen behind through one slip up or one lapse in play or just anything like that. We've won 3-2-1 games. When are we going to have that game where it's more than that? And then we can really get people talking. I think this is a great opportunity for that. The game's pushed up from 4 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So you have a nice Saturday afternoon. I'm expecting good turnout. I'm expecting better weather. So I think this team's up for it. North Carolina can cause mischief and can cause trouble, but I think we'll cause more trouble. I see us going to 4-0. Hoping, I'm not guaranteeing a clean sheet, but I'm hoping this is the week where we get it.
Absolutely. So yeah, we've got that game coming up, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, Keyworth Stadium this Saturday. I believe that game is going to be on.
Hey, it's on CBS Detroit 62, and then because USL is going to have their first ever national CBS game at 4 o'clock. So for what I'm remembering, CBS is doing a doubleheader for that.
Yep, and what we have coming up next is overtime, so make sure you stick around for that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Overtime here on the Detroit City Sportscast. Just finished up with some Detroit City FC talk. winners 2-1 over Indy 11 this past Saturday. Garrett, one thing I wanted to mention though too before we get into this overtime, Detroit City FC 2. Is that starting up this coming weekend?
Saturday.
And we don't have a schedule or anything like that. Or we do have a schedule.
Right.
We
I
don't
haven't
have a
heard anything.
roster.
No, so I wonder if this is going to be like the old NPSL days where you didn't really know your roster, or it's a makeshift in and out roster until like a weekend before or like 10 days before that. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. The problem is that game a noon game, right? I forget what time it is, but we'll see. We'll pay attention to all the details. So I think they're playing at their home games are at Martin Luther King High School. If anything, I'm expecting official club announcements. You would think to come out tomorrow, Wednesday, something along those times.
Yeah, in the next couple of.
Um,
I'm wondering if we're going to see Victor or Ryan Williams get any time with the 2 team, just to kind of
get the legs going.
Get the legs going.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's a very good possibility for that. We could see some ins and outs on there too, and that might even be like, if we're getting full in the midfield, or even if people are getting hurt and they need like a rehab start, that might be where you see some big. Hey, can you feature for like 50, 60 minutes and like a warm up for this to get back into there? So, I'm guessing we'll find out more. It's making sense a little bit because for those that love international soccer, city clubhouses usually open in the mornings. I know they're going to be mostly closed on Saturday mornings for the rest of like the international, like the European seasons, essentially, because we have home games now, and I think probably with the 2 teams and all that starting too, it's just all the stuff that would be indoors is now outdoors.
Charlie Miles, coach, right?
Yep.
Megan Miles' husband. All right. Sticking with the whole city thing right now, in overtime, what was more impressive, Garrett? City going 3-0 or the Tigers going 3-0 to start the year?
I think both are impressive, especially like the Tigers coming from behind twice and winning a couple different ways. I'll go City right now because I think when you look at the perspective of the Tigers were known by most, even outside of Detroit here, as a team that is going to likely potentially take the next step and win a division or something like that. People in USL Championship sphere outside of the state of Michigan, and even us here, weren't knowing what to expect from this Detroit City side. To the point where, if you, from all of our people that we know that have been benefiting from FanDuel and everything like that, they've been taking Detroit City lightly, especially on the road. So I don't know how long that's going to stay the same, because I think now people are like, oh, this isn't the same Detroit City from last year. And even John Morrissey, for his backfield coverage, has now listed Detroit City has him second in his power rankings behind Louisville City. So if anything, I think that's more impressive because this is a complete 180 of what we've expected, and it's a good 180 for now. Can we maintain this 180? We'll see.
I agree with you. 3 impressive wins to start the season. Not to say that what the Tigers were able to do in Chicago was impressive, but again, it's the White Sox. City going on the road to start the season, beating Colorado Springs out west, impressive. Beating a hot Loudoun team at home, who looked very, very good offensively going into that game.
Right.
They shut them down, and it, almost from start to finish. And then again, going on the road, being a good Indy 11 team, and also a team that destroyed them last year, in a time when City really, really needed a win. With Detroit City, like you said, the 180 this year, that City has been able to pull off so far, I think has been much more impressive. Not to take anything away from the Tigers, but yeah, City to start the season 3-0 is definitely something to see.
I do want to kind of let's keep this going like end of April, May, June, because it's kind of an idea. Because I look at it now, like the Tigers, like this week, okay, you're going to the Mets for 3, today through Wednesday, then you're home to the A's and all that stuff. But I want to see how are we at the end of April, how are we at the end of May. Same city, maybe not the end of April, but definitely at the end of May, because when you like I'm already looking at who they got in May. You got a return game at Loudoun. You got Phoenix at home, the defending USL champions. On that, that's a CBS Sports Network televised match. You got Louisville away, and depending on how we do in the Cup, you have that too. So I think who's likely to maintain? That's going to be fun. And I think I'm just going to say, folks, good vibe. I'm feeling good vibes from most of our Detroit sports teams right now. I think these are going to continue. We obviously there are some gray areas which Adam's about to cover. So,
well, I wanted to touch on Michigan beating Michigan State 5-2 yesterday to get to the Frozen Four. Was it the first time Michigan and Michigan State have faced each other
in a setting like that
before?
Yep.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about considering the history between the two schools in Division I hockey. But Michigan beating Michigan State 5-2. Congratulations to them. I'm not too happy about it because I'm a Michigan State fan, but whatever.
Four Michigan hockey teams making the NCAA tournament, Western Michigan and Michigan Tech. I think it was painful that you had 3 Michigan teams in the same bracket in terms of Western Michigan, Michigan State. State had to come back from a 4-2 against Western on Friday. It was a mostly end-to-end game. And to be fair, when it comes to Michigan State, I'm mostly neutral because I'm a Central grad. And I feel like that you gave up 2 goals in 12 seconds in the third period. That's going to kill any team. And that's what happened with Michigan State there. I think that's my one friends were saying Michigan State was 4-1 against Michigan in the series. If this was a playoff series, it'd already be done. But that's college hockey for you. Michigan's going to have a very tough Frozen Four. They got Boston College, who fought hard against Quinnipiac yesterday to get in, and then the other side of the Frozen Four, Denver and BU. So that's not taking place this weekend, but that's next week, the weekend after. So there's fight in Michigan. They beat North Dakota and then they beat Michigan State. So they're going to have to really dig in against Boston College. But if they somehow get past them, then yeah, anything's possible.
Switching gears a little bit here. We've got 49ers signing Brock Wright to a 3-year, $12 million offer sheet. I've got to imagine that the deadline for the Lions to match that has to be coming up.
I think it's today.
Let me look. Is it today?
Felt like it was from what Mike Payton was talking about. His first thought was before he took a look at the numbers, yeah, we're going to match that. But when you look at the fact that it is a 12 mil over 3 year for an RFA, that is a backup to when you're also trying to, sort your finances out for re-signing Jared Goff, re-signing Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's tough decisions. Lions already made a tough decision last week. Josh Reynolds going to the Broncos. 2 years, 14 mil?
Something like that, yeah.
So, they've made that tough decision, and I think that all but settles the idea of Donovan Peoples-Jones becoming the number 3 and moving Jameson Williams up to the number 2. So what are you going to do with Wright now? You got Mitchell, Zylstra. Is that another one of our Kevin's Zylstra? So we already have three tight ends and everything. I like Brock Wright. Brock Wright doing that slow rotation like he's a fucking heavy pontoon, like a heavy boat, trying to turn on like St. Clair against the Bucks in the playoffs is something that'll live rent free in my mind. But unfortunately, with the NFL, this is also a business, and you need to sometimes make incredibly tough decisions to take the next step. And if they keep him, it's a sign of how much they really want him. if it's letting go, it's just like, hey, our hands are tied on this one because they have other ideas, especially when you have the draft in 3 weeks.
Ultimately, I think that's what it's going to come down to. Garrett is, I mean, this is what happens to good teams is,
Yeah.
you know, you get guys getting poached like this.
And the Niners know that, you know, if anything, I'm going to take that as a sign of that the Niners are admitting like, hey, we got a little bit lucky in the NFC title game. And the Lions have to go back to Santa Clara this year to take on the Niners.
Yep.
So
Yep.
The NFC is going to be fun, folks.
Yep. And sticking with the Lions, Cam Sutton last night turned himself in to Florida police after he's really been on the run since I think it was March 7th when a warrant was issued for his arrest stemming from domestic violence allegations.
And we
So
got
he
made
turned
wind of
himself-
that 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So it became public like
Yep.
2 days.
Yep. So he turned himself in, which is good to hear because I think we mentioned it, was it last week about, just, stuff like this, not ending well, ending bad. And it's good that he turned himself in. But he is facing a felony that could carry a prison sentence up to 5 years. So he's gone. Lions released him shortly after the arrest warrant was issued. And they've got some work to do on that end now because they've got to try to find a replacement for him, whether that comes in the draft or whether that comes through free agency. So
one note on this Brock Wright deal, additionally, if it goes through, because I just saw this while you were talking about Cam Sutton. Looks like $6 million in guaranteed money for Wright. So that's another thing that you probably have to tie in on that too. And like with Cam Sutton,
Yep.
Like I said, first things first, physical and personal well-being for those that are affected by this in any way. It's that on there too. It's unfortunate that this situation's even come into the situation, but I hope that it is I just hope for the best outcome for all that's involved in that. I think at the end of the day, there's sports and there's life, and life takes precedent on that. In the sports end of it, if this goes the way that it goes, and like you're talking about the things that the charges and what those charges lead to, those that are looking at the books on the Lions, that should mean that once, because this would probably require a league suspension too. And if that requires a league suspension, what that means, player, I forget what the exact wording is, but that might be violated, which then means that frees up what would have been 10 million or so to fill in that role that would need to be spent. So it is a unfortunate, like I said, it's an unfortunate sign all around, especially when commitments and that, and life and precedence. But we just hope for the best for all involved on there. Going a bit lighter real quick. Your thoughts on the graphic released for the new unis coming out in a couple of weeks. I had a couple of thoughts on this. We gotta keep it lighter. It's always gonna be something that we're talking about. There were 2 shades of blue in the graphics, but I've also been rumbling maybe a lighter blue and a darker silver.
I mentioned to you this on the phone that I don't know. I'm not really taking anything from the graphic. But I'm with you. I would love to see two different shades of blue. I think that would be really, really cool. You know my opinions on the Lions jerseys and what I don't want to see.
Yep.
Don't want to see black. No black. 2 different shades of blue, white and silver. I'm all good with.
How would you feel if they went like a darker silver and then went with a lighter blue?
And then without adding another shade of blue?
Yeah, or they should do the tradition, or say they go lighter in the Honolulu blue to like a skyish Honolulu sky or whatever, and you save the traditional blue, and you bring back say like our childhood Lions jersey as the new throwback, taking over the 50s.
I think that would be cool because I'm not thrilled. I don't necessarily like the 50s.
We won
throwback
3
all
NFL
that much.
titles with that, but most of us weren't alive for that.
Yeah, I think
the
it's
real
kind of.
ones that were a pass. Shout out Benjamin Cap. Shout out.
Yeah, I think the 50s one is kind of boring, so I wouldn't mind seeing that one go away. I don't like the idea of going to a lighter shade of blue and a darker gray. I think that I don't like the look of that too much. The only thing that I would do if they're fixated on changing things up is add another shade of blue.
Right.
I don't think they need to change the how dark the grays are or anything like that. Just if you want to add another shade of blue to maybe
two-tone
that
blue,
maybe
Garret?
enables you to do to maybe like maybe it enables you to do something different with the color rush jerseys. That would be fine. But I've told you before that I'm good with what the Lions jerseys are right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
April 18th for that. There's actually, it looks like there's going to be an event taking place for that at Ford Field. So, unlike the Texans thing, which I think there was a leak and then the club confirmed, I don't know if there's anything. I would not be surprised if this remains under tight wraps because of the type of event that we are going to be having. But there's also Texans got new unis coming out. The Broncos have new unis coming out. The Jets have new unis coming out, and us. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Two quick final points here. Michigan Panthers. Yes, we're gonna mention the Michigan Panthers. 18-16 winners in their UFL opener over the St. Louis Battlehawks from Ford Field. The big story coming out of this one, kicker Jake Bates for the Panthers hits a 64-yard field goal with room to spare to win the game for the Panthers.
Low snap and all.
According to Tony Paul, Lions, Brad Holmes inquired about him.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? I thought I read somewhere too that he'd never kicked a field goal in college.
But that's football for you.
Yeah, again, I know it's kind of a new hotness type of thing considering what he did on one play.
Technically, two, because the first one they called a timeout and he bashed that one good.
Yes.
With a better snap.
The Battlehawks tried to ice the kicker. Yeah, it's cool to see him do that. Is he going to get an invite to some NFL camps this summer? Yeah, he probably will. But I think ultimately this is what's cool about the UFL though, is being able to see plays like this, NFL teams being able to see plays like this, and general managers, writing these guys' names down in their notebook as potential players to invite to training camp. So yeah, Jake Bates, 64-yard field goal with room to spare to win it for the Michigan Panthers over the St. Louis Battlehawks, 18-16.
Next game for the Panthers, real quick, as I bring up their schedule, I believe is April 14th. Let me go here. That is week 2, April 7th. Apologies. Ford Field. That is going to be on ESPN against the Birmingham Stallions. So that is 12 noon Ford Field on there. I didn't get a count as to the attendance total for Saturday, but well done, Michigan Panthers. I mean, the Panthers have won a title before the Lions have, and they're the OG Panthers on there. So we like I said, this is a Detroit City Sportscast. That includes the Michigan Panthers. So yeah.
And to finish things out, Pistons 96-87 winners over the Washington Wizards last Friday. That brings the Pistons to 13-61 on the season.
Yep. Fun fact:
I
3
mean,
wins against the Hornets, 2 against the Bulls, 2 against the Raptors, 2 against the Wizards. So yeah.
Yep. Pistons start the month of April out tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies from LCA. Tip on that one is 7 p.m. And they've only got 2 weeks left in the season. They've got the Hawks, Grizzlies, Nets, Sixers, Bulls, Mavericks, and they finish out the year in San Antonio against the Spurs. A couple of wins in there, maybe, possibly. You never know really with these Pistons, but
Right. I mean,
yeah,
they're not.
a season
I don't think.
a season that needs to come to an end.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to match their 17-65 win total from last year. There's a slim chance they might not be the worst team in the Eastern Conference if they can. Washington has played one game. Wizards have played one game more than we have, but yeah, like I agree with you. The sooner it ends, the sooner we'll give to breaking it all down. Keeping it in the Yowdy family with his brother for Pistons talk, just to kind of give a brief tease for when but that'll be at the end of the season where we can break down everything from this year and what we all think might lie ahead. So,
absolutely. But that's going to do it this week for the Detroit City Sportscast. You can find us over on our website, detroit.themajorsports.com. Download us anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can get us on YouTube, youtube.com/themajorsTV. Also, you can get us on Twitter as well, at TMSNX Detroit. You can find me on Twitter at TMSNX Adam. Garrett, where can they find you on Twitter?
Twitter at GM Komatz, Komatz. That's also the same for Instagram and Discord. Any of the Detroit City diehards that are listening to this for city-specific content, 451 Tunnel Talk, there will be a new episode dropping also later on this week. There will also be I'll tease some cool Majors Detroit Channel 451 stuff coming ahead with some city things, as well as our just kind of regular stuff, recaps, moldings, etc.
And you can find Channel 451 on the web, 451.themajorsports.com. So, he's Garrett, I'm Adam, and we will see you all next time.